Bintu Agne, hi, happy Monday morning. It is Monday, right? It's Monday. We have a whole new week in front of us, everybody. We have a whole new week in front of us. And I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be healthy. I'm grateful to be safe. I'm in a state which is having incredible numbers, big lockdown. So I know that there are many people who are facing closures, who are stuck again at home, who are really struggling. And so we want to all wrap our collective hearts around them and let them know that we're thinking of them and we're here with them. We're here with them in any way that we can be here. Let us all try to be here with each other. That's what we try to do here every day, is be here with one another and be supportive, be as inspirational as possible, and provide you with information and inspiration that makes your day a little bit better and helps you move forward in your day or in your week. That's what I try to do every day when I get up, and that's what I hope to do. So I always appreciate ideas that many of you send me, and here we are. And today I wanted to talk with my friend Stephanie Ruhle. Stephanie and I are NBC colleagues, and she wrote a piece about how she has been recuperating and dealing with COVID. She announced that this morning, her whole family having COVID, and what she learned along this way of having COVID, and how she learned about how unprepared our system is, how difficult it is for people who might not be able to quarantine like she was able to quarantine, who are not as fortunate as she is, because she was able to get access to tests that cost a lot of money. She had doctors at her beck and call. And she wrote a very moving piece on NBCnews.com about her ordeal and what she learned about it. So I thought, well, let's bring her on and let her tell us what we should know as we all contemplate gathering at Christmas, as we hear the news and try not to freak out about the news. How are we best to move forward? I myself, all week long, have been thinking about that. What's the best thing to do? What should I believe? What should I be paying attention to? What can I trust? What shouldn't I trust? I want to trust the leaders. I want to trust the vaccine. I want to trust. And it's always good to hear from people who have been there and back, who can tell you firsthand, who have no axe to grind, who have nothing to gain but to share their experience. So that's why I wanted to talk to her today and let her tell you. There she is. And time, as usual, we all work on deadlines, us news girls, news gals. And I thought, there she is. Hi, Steph.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your kind words.
I was saying I love you. And we've talked about so many things over the years. We've talked about, in the beginning of the pandemic, we talked about accessing relief for people who had been fired. We talked about that. And I read your piece this morning about you having COVID and your husband having COVID and quarantining and your kids and what you learned along the way. And I thought that would be really great for people to hear firsthand from you. First of all, how you're feeling right now.
Thank you for having me. And I want to thank you for what you do here every day and for the Sunday paper always, but especially in these last 9 months.
Thank you.
Truly having a community, understanding gratitude has just been wonderful. For me, I'm actually feeling well, as is my husband and my kids. And I just feel really grateful and fortunate. Before Thanksgiving, you always talk about gratitude at Thanksgiving. We're like, thank you for my health. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my home. And this year, it couldn't be more important. But what I really have thought about over the last 2 weeks as I've been isolating and recovering is what COVID has been like for all of us in terms of our access to healthcare, what it does. Because, right now, Maria, our government says, Maria, do the right thing. But what we're not doing is creating incentives so people will do the right thing, right? So as soon as my husband, he basically woke up, I don't know how else to say it in an elegant way, but he woke up with a hangover, essentially, and I woke up exhausted. And the truth is, either of us could wake up with a hangover or exhausted any day of the year, but you really have to pay attention to your symptoms, because everyone thinks if you have COVID, suddenly you won't be able to breathe. You will lose your sense of smell or taste. We didn't have any of those things, and we didn't have a fever. He
But
just
what I
didn't
read
feel.
in your piece right away, you just wanted to be safe because it was Thanksgiving. So you went and got tested right away. Your husband tested positive. So you went into kind of crisis mode right away. He went, moved back into the city. You're fortunate you have two different homes. So you were able to go and quarantine with your kids, even though you at first tested negative, and he was quarantined over there. So many people don't have that luxury, right? And you wrote about
100%. And I wasn't even with Mike. As soon as he tested we made mistake one. We did spring into action and go get tested. And we only did it because it was Thanksgiving the next day. And I thought, even though we're going to spend it just us, my sister's a neighbor, people are around, but we went in the car together to get that test, and we wore masks. But, getting a test, it takes hours. And when he tested positive, you said it, he went to the city. We have a room over our garage, and I stayed there. But for a week, my kids stayed in the house by themselves, kind of like pirate living. And my neighbors were bringing them food. But that's only available to someone of privilege, to say, I'm going to go to two separate homes. And we haven't even thought about that, right? So most people wouldn't necessarily get their kids tested. Because if I were to have to go get my kids tested while I was positive, I would be driving them to a testing center. That's hours. They would surely get infected. Fortunately, our employer sent me kits at home. And that's when I realized my kids were positive, because this is what has me the most upset. My kids have no symptoms. They didn't have any symptoms at all. Many people would say, oh, well, the kids have quarantined for a week. They have no symptoms. They're crawling the walls. Let me send them back to school. If I had done that, that would be 3 kids at 3 schools super spreading.
So, Stephanie, what's the kind of, you talk in the piece, I think, really well about kind of being a person of privilege, being able to have access to doctors, being able to afford these really expensive tests, having an employer who stood by you and let you take the time, right, to get well and then welcomes you back. But what is your message to people out there who think, one, it's not a big deal, two, I can't afford, if I have a headache or I wake up exhausted, I can't afford to go get tested because I can't afford to lose my job. And really, let's just do it. I mean, there's so many different ways to approach
these are real concerns. They're possibilities. They're happening. And it's one of the reasons it is spreading, right? Like, Maria, I have not been so sick that, truthfully, if I wanted to get out and go to the store, if I wanted to go to work, if I couldn't put food on the table, would I have felt well enough over the last 2 weeks to go to work? I probably would have.
Oh, really? So it wasn't debilitating for you? You didn't?
Yes, but you and I are both moms. If we couldn't feed our kids, would we go to work to make sure we could feed our kids? Yes. So this really, and I'll go into what we can do as individuals second, but from a government perspective, the government is wagging their finger saying, do the right thing. They're not putting people in a position where they can necessarily afford to do the right thing, because, right, the woman who cuts my hair, as soon as she was exposed by me, she stopped sending her kids to school. She didn't work for the next 2 weeks. That's no money for her. And the government needs to start to say, well, what are we doing to make sure people stay home and stay safe? Or on the other side, we're wagging our fingers and saying, look at a picture of all these people at a party, and we're publicly shaming them. We're also not putting punitive consequences in place to really push people to change their behavior. But while the government doesn't change, what are we doing? We need to put together a list at home of, like, really, what is our plan? A, what are the signs? Because many of the signs are your basic flu symptoms. Find out where your nearest testing center is. Make sure you've contacted them before to know, do they only take people over the age of 18? Do you need a teledoc appointment? Find out all the requirements beforehand.
Okay, so let's break that down. So you're suggesting that people right now, kind of before the holidays, sit down and make a COVID possibility plan. Okay, if I feel sick, where do I go? What do I do with my kids? Who can I call? Do I have a list of people I've been in contact with? Where is the urgent care center? Have I spoken to my employer about how I should handle that situation?
And I know this sounds crazy, Maria, but have frozen meals in your freezer, right?
Yeah.
And if this
No,
wasn't
that doesn't
COVID,
sound crazy. You should see my freezer.
if this wasn't COVID and you got sick, you'd say, my friend Joanne is going to take the kids. My kids are going to go stay at my sister's house. They can't. My kids couldn't go anywhere because even before I knew they had it, they were exposed. So if you can put together a plan, make sure your kids know, here's the 10 things we're going to have to do. You may only be in the 5th grade, but make sure you know how to troubleshoot your computer so you can be going to school online.
Okay, so that's the big thing. People are here saying, it's really smart to make a plan. And I hadn't really thought about that. Much like you make an earthquake plan, much like out here, you make a fire plan, make a COVID plan for your family, for your kids, for your circle, so that so-and-so can tell so-and-so. What's another thing you learned?
Realize where we were in the spring, right? When you say, oh, I'm quarantining, I'm just with my circle, I really want to be able to look closely at what quarantine looks like. Because when we were shut down in the spring, we were truly locked down, right? We were with the people who were in our homes, and that's it. Now, we've all kind of leaked into a bigger circle and a bigger circle. Well, the numbers are worse than they were in the spring. So this is time to tighten that circle. And I know our kids are frustrated, and I know the holidays are here, but as somebody who didn't celebrate Thanksgiving, I just keep thinking, Maria, thank God I didn't. I was one day away from, if I had spent it with my sister or my parents, I wouldn't be talking to you right now feeling so optimistic. I would probably have really sick extended family members. And
so what is that though? People are saying, like out here in California, we're in a lockdown, right? People have so many different messages from their leaders. They're furious at their mayor. They're furious at their governor. They're furious at the hypocrisy that they think. They think, well, look at, it's not, even if I get it, I can fight it off. Look at Stephanie. She's fine. It wasn't that bad. So there's a lot of that going around. There's like, it's not that bad. I can make it through. It won't be me. I won't get sick. How do you counteract that thinking?
It wasn't that bad because I got really lucky and I was healthy beforehand. And so was my husband and kids. My sister is a lot less healthy than me. And if on Thanksgiving morning, my sister, who lives 4 houses away, who is a lot more vulnerable than I am, if I would have given her a hug that morning, she might be in a hospital today. So I totally appreciate all the COVID frustration. I appreciate it from small businesses, from every angle. And I know how upset people are with lawmakers, and I agree with them. But I wish people could just think about who are the most important people in your lives and realize, again, I still don't know how my husband and I got it. And we have been social distancing. And I do work from home. And I will tell you, maybe the saddest thing for me was when I personally contact traced, because I'll tell you, the state didn't call me. When you pick up the phone to call people, they didn't want to take my call, right? I called a big box store that my husband was at 2 days before he tested with the receipt. And I said, so my husband was there. I think it was like maybe registered towards the left side of the store. It was 4 p.m. Maria, they didn't want to take my call because much of these COVID restrictions are on somewhat of an honor system. And we have to realize a lot of people aren't being honorable. So we need to be. We can't assume other people will do. We have to be our most vigilant and stop thinking about the vaccine, because we don't have the vaccine today. We have the virus today.
Right. But so how do people, it's so hard to kind of, some people say, like, I'm following the rules, I'm staying at home, but I look at everybody's Instagram, all these famous people are having big parties, people are traveling, the airports are full. It's not even, right? Everybody's not in the same boat. And you wrote a little bit about that. And, these relief checks aren't coming. And when am I going to get a vaccine? And I don't even know if I want to take a vaccine. And I can't trust the vaccine. And I can't trust anything that I'm hearing. And so, like, I'm just going to kind of manage my own way and hope for the best. And so here we are. And so short of making our own plan, short of washing our hands, putting on a mask, social distancing, our mental health, I speak to so many people whose mental health is also on the line, not to mention their paycheck, right? So what are we to do short of what you've just suggested?
All of those feelings are completely justified.
Yeah.
But we have to realize that counting other people's money, essentially, or counting, look at that party or look at them traveling. We can't control whether or not somebody else gets sick. We can only control our own family. And I am confused and frustrated as anyone over the fact that I got sick. And I just know that for me, the most we can do to simplify our lives in this time before we have a vaccine, it's essential, because you're put in a position where, right, who's going to look after your kids? Who's going to take care of you? And the less privilege you have, the harder it is. And I wish we could say there's an answer, because I'll tell you, oh, well, I went to this restaurant, but they took my temperature. Maria, I didn't have a fever, not one single day. Lots of those protocols that are in place, I would have skated through, and still I'm sick. So the frustration and the anger people are feeling, I understand it, but this is a living virus that's changing so much. We have to do everything we can to not be mad, because I will tell you, and this sounds very corny, optimism did help us. Trying to stay positive, right? Not dwelling in the negative. And again, I know that's easy to say when I'm when I lead a comfortable life, but I do very much feel like the more positive energy that you can have, the better, and try to find the positive in this.
What was the biggest surprise to you of these last 2 weeks? Was the cost of the test the surprise to you? Was your position a surprise to you? What was the biggest, was your lack of a plan a surprise? What was the biggest surprise to you?
Watching my kids come together and take care of each other, right? I mean, for a week, a 14, 11, and a 7-year-old were living like pirates, taking care of one another. And I'm not sure that many teeth got brushed, and I'm sure a lot of television was watched, but we all got through it. And I'll tell you, it was very hard. When my husband first tested positive, and I didn't let him back in the house, he left immediately. We forget how traumatic COVID has been on all of our kids, right? Yeah. I wasn't, when he got in the car to leave, Maria, I wasn't thinking, I was just thinking tactically. I packed his bag, I put him in the car, and I turn around, and all 3 of my kids were crying. And I was like, guys, dad's just going home, forgetting that for 9 months, our kids are being bombarded with the trauma of news, the trauma of stories of kids who said goodbye to their healthy dad and then they didn't see him again. And all of a sudden I turned and I watched my 3 kids feel that panic. And so I think that we do have to take time in our lives to take those deep breaths and talk to our kids, because this is a really scary time, but there's a lot of things we just keep brushing through. And we can't.
We had a great, speaking of that, last night, my brother was here and we sat outside socially distanced, and he was driving back to where he lives, and his daughter started talking about how sad she was, how isolated she was, and she started crying. And it was like one of those moments where the whole table really stopped. And also it gave permission to everybody to start talking about their grief. And my son, who just graduated from college, he said, I'm grieving right now. I'm grieving the life I had. I'm grieving my situation. I'm grieving that I feel isolated, that I do a job on Zoom, but I have no human connection. And then someone else said, I'm grieving. Then I said how I felt and everybody used the same word. And it was this really very kind of cathartic, but also opening conversation. And the little girl was there saying, I haven't seen a kid and played with a kid in a year. It feels like forever. And it was, it was so beautiful, so sad, so inspiring, so tragic, all at the same time. And I think that's true, that we're all, we hear this news, and there's so much going on. And yet at the very basic level, people are grieving. People are scared. People are confused. They're angry. There's this kind of melting pot of emotions. And I think we have to just try as best we can, as you're saying, to honor the emotions that we're all going through, whether it's, you know, people who can isolate, people who can't. Everybody has a different story. And I think that's why it's so great to share your story. And then people.
But maybe this opportunity is actually giving us a chance to talk about a lot of pain in our life that we don't normally.
Yeah.
Right. So for me and my 14-year-old son, yes, we're getting on each other's nerves, but I feel like we've never been closer, that because of this, he has permission to talk about a lot of things that have been hurting him forever. And because we're home or we're isolated and we have a lot of time to just talk, we should actually do that and bring things out that were maybe sitting in there for a long time. Right.
Yeah.
The fact that I
so
didn't,
beautiful.
my mom's sick and I could have, finally gave me the time to call her and say I'm sorry for a lot of stupid things that I've said or done over the last 5 years. But when you're laying there isolated, realizing maybe you were a couple days away from getting your most important person, your mom, sick, it gives you a reason to call her and say, I'm sorry, I can't believe we fight about politics.
Yeah, that's amen to that. Well, Stephanie, finally, your beat is also business, and so many people, particularly like out here in California, though their businesses are closing down again. Restaurants have spent so much money building up these kind of quasi outdoor dining things, and then they have to close them back down again. They don't see Washington bringing them any relief. What is on the horizon for them, business wise, relief wise?
I wish I could say there was definitive good news, but right now there's not, right? I mean, just think about, this is December. This is the month when you mess with restaurants. This is when many restaurants across the country make most of their money for the entire year, right? Thanksgiving weekend, think of your kids, think of your sons. Any normal year, Thanksgiving weekend, I guarantee your sons would normally have very big bar tabs because you go to your hometown bar and bring all your friends out for drinks.
Yeah.
So while the government hasn't solved anything for small business yet, or since the CARES Act, and we hope they can, I really would love for people to think about this Christmas season when they're getting people gifts. Who are the businesses that you love the most? And think about ways you could spend money now because you want them to be there in 6 months. Even things that don't seem like a normal gift, like a landscaper, a dry cleaner. If you can, if you do have money to spend, because there is something we're not talking about. A lot of people are in dire financial situations.
Oh, we're talking about that. People are,
but
we look at
a
the
lot of other people, Maria, are doing very well, right? If you get to work from home, you're not spending money on commuting, you're not spending money on gas, you're not going out to lunch. If you have money invested, if you own a home, things have improved for you. So there's a portion of the country that are doing very well. So for people who are in that bucket, if you have those blessings, make this the year to think about all those small businesses or people who've worked with you in your life, if you can help them. Because people spend a lot of time and money buying a home in a really cute town. Well, if you want that cute town and that downtown to stay that lovely, do what you can to help those businesses stay alive so they'll be there a year from now.
Yeah, I'm going to actually write about that. There's so many nonprofits that are, facing I may go under, I may not. There's a lot of that. Food pantries, not just food banks, but food pantries. A lot of them can't survive. As you said, small businesses, many of which are run by women in your local town. So if you do have, Amazon is fine. I mean, I'm not, I know everybody likes the convenience of Amazon, but there's all these small local stores that are really dependent, if you can, as Stephanie was saying, to shop there, shop local, shop small.
I love that you talk about charities. Charities are suffering. They're not getting to throw their normal benefits, or not getting to have their events, their fundraisers, and people are forgetting them. So if you have the money, please don't forget them this year.
Yeah, we just had a big Giving Tuesday, the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. People supported that. So all of these nonprofits that, try to continue their work are struggling. Small businesses are struggling. So Jeff Bezos is not. So there are other places to spend your money. But I think it's so great, Stephanie, that you came on today to talk about your experience. I love the idea of a COVID plan. I love the idea of trying to tighten your pod, but if you have a pod, to have this conversation with your pod, right? What's our plan? How do we buckle down? What are you doing for Christmas? How are you celebrating it? I
And
think
just
people
be
really,
honest with your pod, right?
what?
Like, it sounds so corny, but be honest. Like, there was never a more important time for
Yeah.
honesty being the best policy,
Oh,
right? And
somebody's
don't
saying
talk,
here, Meals
don't,
on Wheels in California needs help. I just wanted to, somebody here said, Leland and Nature, Meals on Wheels in California needs help. I just wanted to, oh, we're doing a drive-through toy drive for the garden club, somebody's saying. So those are great. A lot of people doing a lot of really good things. Everyday people can't afford to help small businesses. I understand that. And we're saying that if you can't afford, by no means should you, but that there are some people who can afford to buy gifts. And so we were just suggesting that they shop local if they can, and instead of maybe going someplace else. And so there's all these different people mentioning different foundations. Yes, Meals on Wheels, all kinds of different, doing a reverse account for a local food bank. There's what is this here? I'm just trying to see all these people having great different suggestions. Step into your empathy. Thank you. Don't forget, tip at restaurants, even if it's takeout. That's a really good point. We forget about that. That's a really good point. Tip even if you're doing takeout. So I went to my local restaurant here and went into takeout, and they're like, we were packed when we were open. Now we're closed. People aren't even coming to do takeout. And then you forget to do tipping. So that's a really good point. So I couldn't catch your name, but thank you so much. So you're going to continue, I know, Stephanie, sharing kind of whether help is coming for people. Your story, you can see it. It's on NBCnews.com. I'm sharing it in my stories. And I think her points were that, the system is not set up. So you have to really be set up yourself in many ways. In many ways, you have to kind of count on yourself, be prepared yourself, have frozen meals if you can. Know where your local food bank is. Go there. If you can, my son-in-law, Chris Pratt, did an interview with the head of Feeding America and talked about how he went to food banks when he was young and his family. So I think just to address there is no shame in going to food banks, and there's great honor in trying to help out, if you can, these food banks and food pantries all across our country. Because as you said, Stephanie, so many millions of people are struggling right now, and they don't have the benefit of working from home. So
I would also, the one thing I would really want to impress upon people, please pay attention to symptoms. Even if you have mild symptoms, you could be a mega spreader, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be hospitalized to have COVID. You can be walking around with COVID. And if you're walking around with COVID, you are putting other people in danger. So pay attention to your body, have honest conversations with your family and your pod, right? Because
that's a really good point. Be responsible. No one's going to get mad at you if you tell the truth and you're responsible. So that is really, think about not only your own body, but the people around you, their health as well. So this is a time for all of us to put the us in the us. We're all dependent on the other. We're all dependent on each other. And that's why I loved that you shared your story. And somebody will say, what's the latest numbers on people being out of work? I don't know.
We've got over 10 million people on unemployment right now, but the amount of people that are out of work is significantly higher than that. I mean, even if you think about, Maria was talking about the restaurant business, this time last year, there were 4 million more Americans working in hospitality than there are today. People are out of work. And there's lots of inspirational stories of people doing creative things, but we're not going to be back until we get through COVID. And while the vaccine is fantastic, hopefully it's not here yet. And we can't have our plan to just be, let's hope, let's bet on the vaccine and cross our fingers. We've got to realize how rough things are right now. And they're really bad.
Stephanie Ruhle, thank you. I'm glad you're healthy. I'm glad your family's healthy. You look beautiful as always. And thank you for being on here and for sharing your story and experience. God bless you.
Thank you for everything you do, Maria. Thank you.
You're welcome, Stephanie. Anytime. Okay, there you heard from Stephanie Ruhle. You can see her piece on NBCnews.com where she talks about her experience, her husband's experience, and what we can all learn. I really loved her idea about making a COVID plan. That's really wise. Frozen food, having it on hand, talking to your kids, no matter their age, about this experience, what it's been like for them, what would they feel like if you got sick. And somebody said, I missed her story. What happened? She got COVID, and she shared her story just now, and we'll post this and you can watch it again, or you can read her writing on NBCnews.com, and she continues to report also. Toys for Tots, that's good. Thank you. We have to help Toys for Tots. I love all these suggestions about not forgetting to tip when you pick up food, takeout food. A lot of all the different suggestions of different organizations that need our help. Somebody on here said, don't forget, there's a lot of single people out there. You're absolutely right about that need our help, that need a phone call, that need care, that need support. There's a lot out there, and there's a lot we can all do as we wait to be vaccinated, as we wait. There's much we can do to protect our neighbors and protect those we love. So I hope you have a great week. This was, I hope, a helpful and informative and inspiring conversation to get your Monday off to the right start. And we'll be back here again this week with some other great conversations that I hope will inspire you and inform you and help you to rise above all the noise and anxiety that's out there. Have a great day.